Imagine there's no countries. It isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for. No religion, too. Imagine all the people living life in peace. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us and the world will live as one. That's John Lennon from Imagine. So what's all this fuss? I keep hearing about violins on TV. Like, what's wrong with violins? Like, how are the kids going to learn how to, play really good music? Like, if they're listening to rock and roll music, then they're not playing violins, and they'll never hear good music, By the time they finish their milk and go to bed, they won't hear good music because of all these violins.
It's violence on TV, not violins.
Oh. Well, that's different. Never mind. That was Emily Latella, as played by Gilda Radner, which fits our service theme today. What's all these violins on TV? So I'd like to welcome you to the Unitarian Universalist of San Mateo. My name is Shaun Collins. It's my pleasure, as always, to be back serving as your worship lead this morning. I'd also like to thank anybody for coming online. And I know it's Pumpkin Festival this weekend, so a lot of people like Karyn and I are not going to Half Moon Bay this weekend. So I assume there's a lot of people online as well that don't want to sit on the road for an hour. Today we're exploring the question of what is going on around us to make this community a better place. Karyn Collins will reflect on the work done at the County Health Services Agency, and Tom McCune will talk about his work in the community, including his role on the Belmont City Council. Today's theme is a light in the hallway because look around, we are that light. People who were telling me which companies I should boycott, why I shouldn't have someone as a friend because they don't agree with what they're saying. They had transgressed some rule that they had set. And then there were these emojis that I didn't even know existed. Like some people had these obscene kind of emojis. I'm like, you're kidding. And then even somebody put an angry emoji on this picture I had of our family at Disneyland. I'm like, how could you be angry with that? And then somebody told me, well, Shaun, there are people who are upset with Disney because of, what happened with Jimmy Kimmel and all this stuff. I'm like, yeah, but it's a picture of us. So I'm like, okay, I need a break. I just need a break. So what it was is it was becoming clear that we're losing sight of what it is to be a healthy and vibrant and loving community. And we are catching the virus of negativity, distrust, and anger and posting it online. And there's so much anger, so much negative energy. What are we doing with all this energy? How do we channel it for the good, for positive? As a parent and as a teacher, I learned an important rule. Don't let someone else put you into an emotional state you don't want to be in. I found that if someone else can get you excited, whether it's your child, the kids in your class pushing your buttons, or a car salesman for that matter, trying to sell you something you don't really need, once you're in this altered, excited state, you're angry, you're excited, you're whatever, you're not thinking clearly. Your prefrontal cortex goes offline. And you start to react with that part of the lizard brain, that basic part of our brain that does the basic reaction to things. You are more than likely not making the best decisions for yourself or those around us, and you're also more than likely to be influenced by others. So what do? We have been exploring this theme for the past month or so, and we continue to explore it today. So for me personally, I've been volunteering as a financial coach at Samaritan House and helping with food sorting at Second Harvest. It's been a wake-up call for me to learn how dependent people are understanding finances and how there is very little out there to help them. I'll save those stories for a future service. Recently, I listened to a podcast from the Ezra Klein Show. It was called Spencer Cox Wants to Pull Our Politics Back from the Brink. Spencer Cox is the governor of Utah. And I'm going to quote him because he's saying this more eloquently than I could. This is the quote, so start quote. What I think we should be telling our young people is that they shouldn't be trying to change the world. They should be trying to change their community, their neighborhood, and that's where I really want people to focus. The experts, again, have said that service is one of the most important things that we can do for our own mental health. but also for building community. I would encourage them to join a faith, a congregation, believe in something bigger than yourself. And if you're not interested in faith, then find a group, a positive tribe that is doing good in this world. That will give you a place to meet people who are different than you." End quote.
All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about a couple of things I do to try to shine my light. I try to be the light in the hallway, or I try to shine this little light of mine with two things. One is to sing with UUSM's Sacred Song Circle. As soon as Lori mentioned the possibility of creating the group a few years ago, I knew immediately that I wanted to be a part of it. This was similar to what Rev Vale had been doing with music ministry, where Shaun and I would work with her and we'd go to hospitals or people's home and sing to them when they were feeling ill. And so Lori's idea was to make this a more formal group, which she modeled after the Palo Alto UU group that has a Sacred Song Circle as well. It's a formal group of singers that would practice twice a month to build a repertoire of comforting, soothing songs so that we could provide 30 to 60 minutes of music for someone in need of uplifting music. Everyone in the group agrees that the music uplifts us all, not just those for whom we're singing. And the music becomes our uplifting light in the hallway. Another thing I'm doing is I'm working at the County of San Mateo right now for the Human Services Agency. And my role at the agency, I'm a member of the facilities team, and I assist with keeping our 9 buildings operating safely so that our Human Service Agency staff can assist San Mateo County residents with living a safe, healthy, and productive life. Our 5-member team is responsible for ensuring the safety, security, and operations of the buildings. We keep the interior temperature comfortable. We ensure that our buildings and the furniture inside are configured to meet or even exceed ADA standards or ergonomic standards. We do project work to ensure building construction will meet HSA's needs, and we coordinate moving staff from leased buildings to county-owned buildings to try to lower the cost of providing county services. Recently, I got to work with a couple of our agency partners, Coastside Hope and Samaritan House, to provide them with some of our surplus furniture for their work locations. When we close out a building, there's leftover office furniture that we either have to store or send to surplus for use at other county sites, or possibly even put off on the auction site for the public to purchase. Did you know that there's an auction site called govdeals.com? You ever need some good furniture? That's where the county's surplus furniture goes. I went off track there. Let me get back to where I was. Anyway, this time we were allowed to give some of the furniture to our partners, and it was such a joy to tour our buildings with them and have them select what they needed. Coastside Hope had recently moved to a newer building and were in need of office furniture. And Samaritan House was very interested in sit-stand workstations. Those are those tables where you push a button and it goes down or up, depending on whether you're short or tall, or whether you want to stand while you're typing or whether you want to sit down and relax. So it's good from an ergonomic perspective, so we try to provide those to almost everybody in the county. This time, Samaritan House gets to benefit from our surplus. We'll be delivering those to Samaritan House later this month. So that's one of the rare times when I've got to do something really good and positive. You know, when you're just working facilities and you're just helping others help clients, it's a little bit disconnected, but you just have to keep it in your head. I'm helping the employees help people figure out how to navigate all the complex rules about how to be eligible for different funds and different services and that kind of thing. So that's what, in general, what HSA does, is provides that kind of service. Anyway, my facility team works with a great group of hardworking people that put their heart into helping folks in our community that are underserved or in need of assistance for various reasons. When I started working at HSA 3 years ago, I had no idea what the agency did. And now I want to take this opportunity to shine a little light on their good works, even though it'll only shine on the surface of what they do. HSA has client-facing offices located in Belmont, Daly City, East Palo Alto, Redwood City, and San Carlos. And this is where folks will go to get help with things like public assistance programs, where they can get food from programs like CalFresh. So our workers will actually help people figure out how to be eligible for that program so that they can get food they need. Especially when rules change, it becomes even more important for them to be able to go and get help from our employees at HSA. They can even get help with applying for health insurance, or if they're a veteran, then they can get help with requesting VA benefits. They have a whole department devoted to providing veteran services. HSA also has a huge department for children and family services. They help families understand and solve issues that lead to child neglect and abuse. They take the calls of the child abuse hotline and provide emergency responses with social workers. They provide transitional housing for foster youth. They even help adults with becoming foster or adoptive parents. One of the other departments is the Employment Services Agency. They have programs like SMC Works. They engage with low-income families with services necessary to obtain and sustain employment. They use programs from, I'm not sure if it's state or federal, but it's called CalWorks. And then they have a vocational rehabilitation service center, and they have resource centers where they can go, people with behavioral health or recovery services will send folks to HSA to get help with training for jobs. We also have a center on homelessness. This is one of the departments that I don't know that much about, but I do know that they provide temporary housing for anyone who's in need, and they have many sites operational, including the Navigation Center in Redwood City. There's one in Orange and Grand in South San Francisco. There's one called Safe Harbor, and I forget exactly where that is. But when the homeless enter the temporary shelters, they get connected to other needed services, either from the county or from our county partners, like the folks, the nonprofit Life Moves. We're currently working with the Center on Homelessness to provide furniture for a newly purchased property in Redwood City. That'll be interesting, something we haven't done before. Build out the interior to make it a living space rather than a working space. There's a department that's called the Economic Self-Sufficiency, and they help with folks getting enrolled with insurance, nutritional assistance, supplemental cash. They actually provide that to families with children. They can provide temporary cash assistance for individuals or families without children and to legal immigrants. We have a number of community resources for childcare, community information handbooks, child support services, domestic violence, emergency safety net, and jobs for youth. One of the new things that they've done is they've created an online way to navigate all of the services that HSA provides, and it's called SMC Connect. In fact, it's SMC capital letters -connect.org. That's an online tool to help you figure out where to go for resources. So if you have a family member or a relative or a friend who's in need of assistance, that's a good place for you to start to find services. Now, it really just scratches the surface of everything that HSA does, but I hope I've shined a little light on that information. Maybe you didn't have that before. And during coffee hour, I'd love to hear what you do to shine your light in the community. Bless you all.
Good morning. So many of you know that I've been serving on the Belmont City Council now for 6 years. Before that, I served on the City Planning and Finance Commissions. So I've now been involved in city government for about a dozen years, and I'd like to talk about how local governments make the world a better place. Before I launch into that, I need to start with a little civics lesson. What is a city anyway? Legally, what is a city? Who can tell me? A city is an incorporated political subdivision of the state. That means a city is not a sovereign government like the state or federal government. And a city can only do what the state either allows it to do or requires it to do. Some of our constituents don't quite understand that. They think we can do anything we want, and the answer is we can't. So civics question number 2. What are the 2 different types of cities in California? Correct. The city attorney has it correct. There are general law cities and charter cities. Small cities like Belmont are always general law cities. That means many aspects of governance structure and operations are defined by state law. San Mateo is a charter city, which means that many years ago it created its own unique charter subordinated to the state constitution, which gives San Mateo a little more flexibility in creating its own laws and tailoring its own operations to meet local needs, but it can still only do what the state allows. By the way, all elected and appointed public officials in California swear an oath to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state of California. How many people here have actually read the full text of the state Constitution of California? I don't see a lot of hands. After I had sworn that oath a couple of times, I thought, I've read the U.S. Constitution and it's excellent, but I've never really read the Constitution of California. Maybe I should actually sit down and read it before I swear that oath again. 37,000 words and 524 amendments later, I now know more about fishing licenses and judges' salaries than I ever thought I would. There is a bunch of stuff in there that should be done by statute instead of by constitutional amendment. However, the state constitution does generally do a very good job of protecting individual liberties, such as freedom of speech and freedom of religion. But the federal constitution does a better job in less than 5,000 words. But I digress. The fact that the city is a political subdivision means that most of what we do is pretty tactical and operational in nature. The great philosophical issues of our day mostly get addressed in Sacramento or Washington, for better or for worse. In Belmont, the basic city functions are city planning, fire protection, police protection, public works, and parks and recreation, all of which contribute to making things better, although in somewhat different ways. Let's start with city planning, which also includes zoning and permitting. Its most visible contribution in recent years has been in the realm of affordable housing. Everybody knows there has been a tremendous housing shortage in the Bay Area for a long time. That's why housing prices are so high. It's the first law of macroeconomics. Aggregate supply and aggregate demand. If you artificially constrain the aggregate supply of a thing, the aggregate demand soars and the price rises. Suburban cities like Belmont were a big part of the problem for many years. Many of our former leaders thought that Belmont was just the most perfect little village that time forgot and the years could not improve. So they created laws and policies that made it almost impossible to build anything new, especially multifamily housing. A few years ago, the state stepped in and created a bunch of new laws requiring cities to provide for the construction of new affordable housing. Some of that was good because cities weren't doing it on their own. However, in typical California fashion, we have swung from one extreme to the other without any real plan. In the bad old days, nobody could build any new housing, and now almost anybody can build almost anything, provided it is within half a mile of Caltrain and contains a few affordable units. As a city, we often have no ability to stop or even require modifications to that type of project, even when the project includes negligible parking, removes property from the tax base, creates traffic problems, or eliminates important services to residents. On balance, I still think that city efforts to add affordable housing are generally making the world a better place. In Belmont, we still have some underutilized light industrial sites along Old County Road that make excellent housing redevelopment sites. But in another 6 or 7 years, those sites may be used up. A state law named RHNA, the Regional Housing Needs Allocation, gives every city a quota for new housing production, and the quota goes up every decade. When those sites along Old County Road are used up, what do we do then? I don't have the answer, and the State Division of Housing and Community Development that administers this stuff doesn't seem to have any answers either. The bottom line is I think the state has done the right thing in requiring the construction of more housing, but it has done the wrong thing in depriving cities of many of the tools we use to assure that the housing that does get built fits properly into the existing communities. Other very traditional city functions that make the world better are the fire and police departments. In every city where I've lived, people love the firefighters and maybe not quite so much the cops. I can kind of understand that, but we need both to live in a civilized community. I've now been a homeowner in 7 different cities, and I've been lucky. Most of the places I've lived have been nice and safe, like Belmont. However, a couple of those previous cities where I lived were not. A couple of them had high crime and the old-fashioned bad example police departments that you see on the news and read about in the newspapers. Everybody remember newspapers? I was never personally the victim of that kind of policing. They just shunned me. But people I worked with were victims of that old school bad example policing that made the world worse, not better. A few years ago, people came up with the slogan, "Defund the police." That wasn't just the most politically counterproductive slogan of the century, it was also the wrong answer. Yeah, it would be great if we lived in a world where we only needed cops to occasionally locate missing seniors and direct traffic for sporting events. But that's not the world we live in. Even in a low-crime city like Belmont, we still have fentanyl drug deals, burglaries, assaults, shots fired near schools, and occasional murders. We need highly professional police to deal with those situations in order to make the world a better place. A few years ago, when public concern rightfully erupted over cases like George Floyd and others, our city council sat down with our PD and worked through a whole bunch of issues with them. And their response was great. They didn't stonewall, they didn't make excuses. They looked at all of their policies and training and implemented a lot of new things to improve relations between the cops and the community while continuing to enforce the laws and making Belmont a better community. One of the many things they did was to create a special unit within the PD consisting of officers with degrees in psychology and special training to diffuse cases involving non-criminal situations. I'm not talking here about anybody else's PD, and I'm not talking about the county sheriff. I'm only talking about the Belmont PD. Another very non-philosophical thing cities manage is public works, which includes things like streets, sewers, and storm drains. So now it's time for civics lesson number 3. When you flush the toilet at home, where does it go? Who knows? It does go down. In San Mateo, it goes through city sewers until it reaches the treatment plant at Seal Point. If you live in Belmont, it goes through city sewers until it reaches a wastewater treatment plant located on the bay at Radio Road in Redwood City, where the sewage is treated before the clean water is released back into the bay. How many people have been to Radio Road? Okay, good, we have a few. It's an interesting facility. They do tours from time to time. Yeah, it's an old radio. There was an old radio broadcasting building there. Okay, the sewage treatment plant brings up one of the ways in which small cities fulfill their obligations, which is through joint powers authorities, often called JPAs. Since Belmont is too small to economically build and operate its own wastewater treatment plant, we teamed up with San Carlos, Redwood City, and the county to create the Silicon Valley Clean Water JPA, the entity that manages that treatment plant. Since JPAs need a governing board, I sit on that board as one of the commissioners. If wastewater treatment sounds like a pretty prosaic function of government, imagine living with an outhouse like I had to when I was a kid helping out on my grandparents' farm in the summertime. We're talking outhouse, Missouri, and summertime. Not good, not good. Other JPA boards I sit on include the fire department, which is Belmont joint with San Mateo and Foster City. The South Bayside Waste Management Authority, which includes 8 different cities. It manages the transfer station on Shoreway Road and the contracts with Recology, the company that runs the fleet of waste collection trucks. Peninsula Clean Energy, which buys electricity from solar and wind generators for distribution to you over PG&E's lines. The County Emergency Services Council that oversees many of the emergency services provided by the county, such as the county fire department and SMC alerts. Has everybody signed up for SMC alerts? If you haven't, you should. It's not a perfect system, but it's getting better all the time. And there are many other JPA boards making the world a better place for the citizens of Belmont that are represented by my colleagues on the Belmont City Council. All of these tactical functions of local government make the world a better place, but none of them are free. All of them get paid for through property taxes, sales taxes, and fees. Nobody loves taxes. I don't enjoy paying taxes, and I don't enjoy levying taxes. But I feel better about local taxes where I can see what they go for than I do about federal taxes, which seem sometimes unnecessary and sometimes wasteful. So when you get your next local tax bill, mine just showed up in the mail, think of all of the public benefits it pays for. And don't forget to thank your local elected officials for the fact that you don't need to maintain your own personal outhouse.